Hi everyone, I'm Valerie Drown, Director of the Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Support Initiative and host of Let's Not Forget. Over the past season, we've had the honor of sitting down with caregivers, advocates, and experts who've shared powerful stories and real-world advice about one of life's toughest and most meaningful journeys, caring for someone with Alzheimer's. Today, we're bringing you the very best moments from Season 1. You'll hear uplifting insights, honest conversations, and tips that have touched hearts and helped caregivers feel just a little less alone. Whether you're a seasoned caregiver or just starting out, this episode is for you. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's revisit the voices that made our first season so impactful. Our first episode of the Let's Not Forget podcast is titled Your New Norm, and our guest is Jim Comer, author of When Roles Reverse, A Guide to Parenting Your Parents. Jim is a seasoned, multifaceted speaker, writer, and presentation skills coach with more than 25 years of experience working with Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, and entrepreneurs. He has appeared on The Today Show, written jokes for Bob Hope and Joan Rivers, and authored op-eds that ran in the New York Times, Washington Post, and Los Angeles Times. But mid-career, after his father suffered a massive stroke and his mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, Jim had to leave his job and home in LA to become a caregiver for the next 14 years. At the age of 51, Jim found himself an overnight parent. Today, Jim is here to talk about caring for a loved one or parent who helped raise you.
Once I was able to find the humor in our interactions, it really helped. And I often tell people that so often caregivers want their parents to be the way they used to be, especially those with dementia or Alzheimer's. They want that old parent there, and they get angry when the parent with dementia is being who they are at the time. And I always say, you've got two choices. You can either correct them and be right, or you can love them and be kind. And kind is so much more important than right. Right is not important at all. You wouldn't tell you. See, we want them to be sharp. We want them not to repeat themselves and ask the same question. They're going to do that because that's where they are.
Today's episode of Let's Not Forget podcast is Planning for the Unknown, and our guest is Ann Thayer. As the Associate Director of Programs and Services at the Alzheimer's Association of Northeastern New York, Ann connects families with the resources they need throughout the caregiving journey. According to AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, 1 in 5 caregivers provide care for more than 41 hours a week. That's pretty much a full-time job. But even beyond the long hours of challenging work comes the additional stress and sadness of seeing someone you love starting to change. For a caregiver, every day is vastly different, but they're all challenging in their own way. We are here to tell you there are tools you can use to plan for the unknown, handle changes to a loved one's behavior, and build impactful relationships while doing it. My grandfather never put my grandmother in a nursing home. Mm-hmm. He tried to manage her, and I say the word manage very purposefully.
Sure.
He tried to manage her at home, and I can remember as a little girl going in and my grandmother in a corner, and she had her hands over her ears, and she's saying, I don't know him, make him go away, make him go away. And I remember my grandfather standing there going, make her stop saying this. And those are some of the memories that I carry because of the behaviors. Mm-hmm. And he broke down trying to care for her at home. So I think that there's a lot of guilt with putting someone in a nursing home, but there's also a lot of struggles with trying to keep them at home.
Right. And, when I speak with families now who are facing that decision, and the promise I made both of my parents at the end of their lives was, I will always ensure you receive the best care. And
Nice.
I think that is a promise that we can keep, because I've known caregivers who have made that promise to keep their loved one home. And it really is not a very good quality of life for the person with the disease or the caregiver.
Sure.
And many times in those situations, the caregiver actually passes before the person with the disease. So I think sometimes, it could be bringing care in. Sometimes it's looking at long-term care. Sometimes it's looking at those informal supports that we'll talk a little bit about later.
Right. And I think that providing that, I love how you say it, I'm going to get the best care for you as possible, because that promise does help in the moment.
It does.
It helps the caregiver feel good. It helps the care receiver feel good.
Right. And I always remind them that no matter where your loved one lives, you're always their care partner.
Always.
And you're there to oversee, but
Right.
you're able to get back to some of the basics of your relationship, where it's just holding hands and spending quality time to each other without getting into all the nitty-gritty of caregiving.
Today's episode of Let's Not Forget podcast is titled Making New Memories, and our guest is Megan Monica. As the Assistant Director at the Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Support Initiative, Megan is an integral part of our team in providing programs and services to caregivers and care receivers throughout Northern New York. But Megan is not only my colleague, she is a true friend. We have both found ourselves as caregivers for loved ones and have helped each other through some difficult times. You've had your hands in just about every program under the Caregiver Support Initiative. So why don't you talk about that?
So, I would say a big one that I do is wellness, scheduling those wellness events for caregivers. That is a pretty big part of our program right now. And it's just, nice events where they get to come and meet other caregivers. It's just their time as caregivers to relax and enjoy things like halo therapy, walking club, coffee club, different kinds of things to give them another sense of working with others who are going through similar things that they are. So it's kind of a different stress-free environment than maybe meeting up with a friend who's not at that same junction in life. Another piece of the program that I do right now is also memory cafes. That is something that caregivers and their care receiver get to take part in together. And I think it's such a beautiful program because caregivers and care receivers don't necessarily have a lot of options that are outside the home to make new memories still at where they're at in life now. And it gives them that a safe place to be able to go. They know others who are going are in the same boat they are. So they really get to have that second of come down like, oof, I don't have to make sure everything's perfect. I don't have to worry that, he might get upset and have to walk out of the room. Everybody's going to be okay, understand, and go with the flow. We do a lot of music, and I see a lot of dancing and hear a lot of things that, I haven't seen him this happy in years. Or we got told, we went home and he said, I love you. And he hasn't said that to me in months. So just a beautiful piece of our program.
Mental health is the focus of today's episode. Taking proper care of your mind goes such a long way in looking after your physical and mental health. It's an area where some people talk the talk, but may not walk the walk. My safe space is in my car. I like to listen to soothing music or something from the 80s in order to take my mind off the daily stresses. Little things like that can go a long way. Now I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Through his work with the elderly and aging population, my guest today brings extensive knowledge of mental health support services of those with Alzheimer's disease or memory loss. Nicholas Drown is Director of Day Programs at the Third Age Adult Day Center and can talk about the importance of protecting your mental health, especially as a caregiver who is caring for a loved one from afar. What advice can you give to caregivers? Or maybe what can you say that will encourage them to seek out alternatives?
You're not alone. That's what I tell people quite often in our intake meetings as well, or when I'm on phone calls with people asking about the program, is you're not alone. We have these amazing programs that help caregivers specifically, like ADCSI, or programs like Third Age Adult Day Center that helps both. There's resources out there,
Right.
and there is absolutely no shame in getting help. You don't have to feel guilty for needing a break. Everybody needs a break. You don't have to feel guilty for seeking help.
Right.
And we have the resources to help with that. We've seen some tremendous improvement in individuals that have come. They've really, I mentioned earlier about, sometimes it takes a couple weeks to warm up, but they develop these new friendships, these new routines, these new memories almost, that they associate with the center. And then it gives you, the caregiver, the respite that you need to do the things that you need to do, or just to do nothing at all. You can, we can pick up your loved one and you can sit on the couch and take a nap if that's what you need that day.
Watch movies all day long.
Watch movies. There's no judgment. There's no, we're here for them.
Yeah. So I think it's important for caregivers to really take that opportunity. It's good for their loved one with dementia to have the opportunity to go and socialize, because what we know is that having conversations, even like the ones that you and I are having right now, they're so good for our brain because we're going back and forth and we're having to think on the fly and come up with responses, and our brain is just firing. It does the same thing for individuals when they're having conversations at third age. So just sparking those neurons to start firing in the brain and working with them, how important is that for that person?
Right. It's so important. And we, cater a lot of our activities to that concept. We do a lot of trivia. Specifically, we'll go back like different music eras, 60s, 70s, try to touch on all those different aspects of the past. A lot of the music activities, we have live music that comes in. Music is an amazing form of therapy, of reminiscence.
Sure.
We even have an Elvis impersonator that comes in once a month, and that's a big hit. And
I've seen him.
He's amazing. And the people we support absolutely love that. And you'll see these almost, we call them sparks of remembrance, of these little glimmers of the personality coming out.
Mouthing the words to the songs.
Absolutely.
Watching them not know how to speak, and yet all of a sudden they're mouthing words to the songs.
Absolutely.
So cool.
It's an amazing experience.
As an in-town caregiver, I routinely check in on my loved ones and often spend time with them. While that may be what you typically imagine a caregiver relationship to look like, according to Family Caregiver Alliance, 13% of caregivers live between 20 minutes to an hour from their care recipient. A small percentage live even further away. Just because someone isn't there every single day doesn't mean they aren't making crucial decisions about their loved one's well-being and health care. Today's guest knows firsthand the difficulties of prioritizing your loved one from afar. Cindy Snyder lives in a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee, and is a caregiver for her mother, who has experienced memory loss since 2015, and her father. Both are in long-term care facilities in Plattsburgh, New York. Today, Cindy is here to share her insight on how to stay connected and involved from a distance. Isn't it great, though, when you have specific tasks that your family is saying, we need your help with this?
Yes.
And I think that for some it's difficult because they want to be helpful, but everything is so generalized that they don't know what to help with.
True.
The other thing is guilt. Isn't guilt so common? It's unfortunate that we have to feel that way, or that we make ourselves feel that way. I think that I hear so often from caregivers that they're the ones who are doing the direct care, and then the out of town caregiver comes in and tries to tell everybody what to do. Right?
Yes.
I have heard that time and time again. I think what I want people to hear from you is that's not the intention. The intention of the out of town caregiver is to support, do what you can, but you also have ideas related to caregiving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the different personalities have different roles, right? And we're stronger in one area than another. And my strength is to organize and plan and get things done. And so sometimes they needed me, like, we are going to go look for a facility, and to encourage that we need to do this. And they all didn't want to go. And it was better that they all didn't go to look at all these facilities. But sometimes it just needed me to catapult them into action. But then also for me to realize when I visit, I don't need to tell them what to do. I need to support them and say, what do you want?
Today we are getting very personal. Our guest is someone who I've known my entire life, and someone who has been my rock, and at times I've also been hers in this caregiving journey of ours. I'd like to welcome my sister, Michelle Wright, to Let's Not Forget. We always trusted each other with whatever system maybe one of us would suggest. And I think it's also easier. You and I were talking on the phone last night about how maybe it's easier for someone like you and I, and the fact that it's just the two of us. Whereas sometimes you've got big families and lots of personalities, lots of opinions, lots of everything.
Right. I don't know if we've ever disagreed over Mom's care or what we should do.
Over money.
Or money. No, I don't think we've ever disagreed.
I think what we always kept at the forefront was, Mom's care was number one.
Right.
We realized that other people giving care isn't the care that we'd give, but we knew that compromises had to be made.
Well, pick your battles is basically what you said. There's some things that are more important to, as far as her care,
right,
that we've got to focus on.
Right. Yeah. I think that we've focused on what our assets are. Finances are not my asset.
Mom had to make sure the checkbook came out to the penny. And so now it's not hard now because there's not much, but I would make sure that everything came out to the penny, just because I knew that that's what she wanted, whether she knew or not.
Right.
What it was.
I would never do that.
I know.
I'd be like, is it close? Is it close? Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm healthcare.
Yes.
Like I'm the medicines girl. I'm the one who can, because I know a lot of the players in what I call the ball game. I know a lot of the players, so it's easier for me to make contacts with people and say, hey, this is going on. What should I be thinking? What should I be doing? So I just have those connections. If you or your loved one lives in Clinton, Essex, Franklin, Hamilton, Warren, or Washington County, ADCSI would love to meet you. You can also find us on our website, wehelpcaregivers.com, or on Facebook and Instagram at We Help Caregivers. Thank you so much for joining us today, and as always, never forget, you're only human, and you're doing a great job. We'll see you next time.